And we also have one that our attorney provided for the packets, which is from Antioch. The only thing that concerned us about the one from Grayling is they actually make it a misdemeanor, which is a crime. That's a criminal charge. I don't know if we really want a criminal charge for not shoveling. But we do have to keep in mind, whatever we decide to do is enforcement. Enforcement becomes an issue. So I'm going to open it to the floor, to the trustees, and get your thoughts and ideas and how you feel about this.
What do we do when residents have their grass too tall? What consequences are there under those circumstances? Because I know they were giving warnings or something.
They get a warning, and then they get a fine, ticket fine, $25, and it goes up after a numerous charge. I think after 3 times.
But usually after the first one notice or two, 99% of the people cut the grass. Most people, once you warn them, don't want the fine, so they do those.
I think we should do something similar to that for this as well.
We thought we could put the sidewalks in after people moved in. Everybody knew the sidewalks were there when they bought their home. So
actually, some did and some didn't. And I say that jokingly because if you notice in our town, we have sidewalks on one side of the road and not on the other. And a lot of people, when they moved in our community, they didn't know what side that they were on. There was no stipulation. So you didn't know if you had the side necessarily without the sidewalk or not. Not that that's an excuse not to shovel up, certainly.
And Jeff does the areas where there's sidewalk but no residents.
If it's the village sidewalk, like, yes, adjacent to a park. And also, we're very happy, and I've gotten a lot of compliments, particularly with the last recent snow activity with our new tractor. The attachment, we are now plowing the bike path, which many people have been very appreciative of. And with the right equipment, it doesn't take all that long for him to do. So he said it's really easy now, because we couldn't do it before.
I want a clarification on that one question. I think Georgianne said Jeff is doing areas that belong to the village or not residents. I'm trying to picture along Bighorn from the settlement to the sanctuary. There's that long sidewalk that includes part of the bike, where the bike path goes on.
Yeah.
Did he do that in this? I mean, it wasn't done at all last year. And I did not notice the way he did it for last week's snowstorm.
I honestly don't know.
say that again.
On Bighorn Drive, East Bighorn, the green spaces, north side of the street. There's 100 yards worth of sidewalk. And I'm just wondering if Jeff did that. It had never been done in previous winters. And one of the questions I had, I think, was the Antioch ordinance. It has it stated that the residents on either end will do that. And I just didn't like that idea.
No, I don't think we have the right to make that resident responsible for that extent.
I don't think it had been done. No, there's obviously some foot traffic. The kids walk down there. In fact, I know it wasn't done because kids use the sleds there. And it would start from the side.
Oh, go down that hill?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. But that's probably an area then that we need to address, though. If we're gonna,
one way or the other.
yeah. And then that ties back into the fire hydrants. I think we want to make residents, I know I have a fire hydrant on my lot. We shovel it out. During one storm, I think Kevin came and touched it up, which is very nice of you, Kevin, thank you. But we try to keep it clear. And I don't want my grass damaged. That's just my take on it. So I would like to think that residents would be able to clear out their fire hydrants and that we shouldn't have to send around somebody to do it. I mean, if something's really badly covered, then I think we have to go in. It's an issue of public safety. But I don't think that we should make it a responsibility that we're going to do that. There's no reason that a resident shouldn't be able to You know, we've made some nice, I think we still continue the policy with senior citizens or disabled, that's a different story. But I think for a regular household, they should have to clear out their own fire hydrant.
I don't have a good feel, I just don't, but is there enough of a nuisance, people not doing it, that we need to codify this?
The fire hydrants or these, or both?
The side, stay with the sidewalks for now.
Well, we don't have a lot of them, but there's a few that are adamant, that have taken a stance. So I guess the question is, with the news or the copy of the statute that Jim Rock brought me, is I could go to those homeowners now and send a letter and say, you know, you're not liable, you're not going to be sued, so there's no reason not for you to shovel. I don't know if that's enough to make them do it. So if they still refuse, I'm particularly concerned about the corner lots, and one particular at a bus stop, where there's a pretty good number of kids, bus traffic there.
Well, do you think that individual, and I don't want to know who it is, do you think that individual is bright enough if they get Jim's explanation that says if they don't shovel, they can be sued?
I don't know what to expect. Like, it's a 50-50 thing. They might say, I don't care.
And then we have to look at, as you mentioned before, enforcement. Are we going to turn our community service officer from Grays Lake into the snow police now?
He's driving around anyway, I mean, it doesn't hurt to take a look. You know what I mean? Like, it's not.
Especially, it's very difficult to get around.
Well, one thing we could do is if you let them know that if we do adopt an ordinance, there's a number of things we can do. Recently, if you remember the windstorms we had a while ago, we had some downed trees. We took care of the village trees. There was a couple trees that were residential trees. One, however, went down and obstructed a sidewalk. The village went out and removed, sawed, took away the pieces that were obstructing the sidewalk or were causing danger. And then the resident was notified with a phone call that the tree was their tree. It was not a parkway tree. It was their responsibility to clear the debris and decide what they wanted to do about the tree. And there was no action taken. So then we got a phone call from them before we could even call them asking, you know, who should they use? We said we don't recommend anybody in particular, but we gave them a name of a landscaper that we've used that lives in the village, and still nothing was done. Jeff went out and tagged and gave a 72-hour notice to move the debris, or that they would be cited. And that spurred them to action. So if we adopt a new ordinance, we're going to have to get the word out that this ordinance exists. And then my recommendation would be that we use that tags. We go and tag them and give them 24 hours to get their snow cleared. And then they can be ticketed and cited.
I don't think there's any harm in having this on the books. I mean, it would give us a little more teeth, you know, if Linda's going to talk to these folks, because especially, I remember when you're going around canvassing the neighborhood for the election, and you're traipsing around, it's very difficult at night with the sidewalks a mess, and I would think that this would be a good thing for us to do.
Well, especially in a place where we only, in a majority of the village, have one sidewalk per street. We don't have another option other than walking on people's lawns. If they don't clear it, people are out there taking a walk, they're out there, and the sidewalk isn't cleared, they're going to slip, they're going to fall, and, you know, this prevents that. And I don't see a problem.
You're saying this resident with a corner lot has a sidewalk on two sides of his property?
Correct.
And it's a school bus stop?
Yes.
Why don't parents help taking turns or something? I mean, if all the kids congregate there to go get on the bus.
Not their property.
It's not their property, it's not their responsibility.
And actually, there's one father who is so upset. He called me and asked me if he legally could shovel their sidewalk, and I said, yes. I said, you legally can shovel that sidewalk, and they can't tell you to get off of it as long as you're not going on their driveway or on any walk up to their home. I said, so you have the legal right to do it, but his point also was he shouldn't have to, but he was willing to do so. Maybe, here's a thought. Why don't I take this information that Jim Rock has brought back to those residents that we have real issue with, and see what their response is, and depending on their feedback at the January meeting, maybe if the feedback is not good or doesn't change anything, then we have a draft of an ordinance to adopt.
And I think we should put that in the newsletter as well.
Oh, yeah, newsletter and on the website, yeah, this about that they're not liable, yes, absolutely.
One thing to consider, if we're going to ask Jim to come back with an ordinance, one other thing to consider is, you had just mentioned possibility of citing them, saying the snow's got to be gone in 24 hours. We need some flexibility there, because what if it snows Friday night and I happen to be out of town for the weekend, and there's no one in the residence, so they can't, there'd be no way, one, you would be able to communicate with me. Two, there's no way if I'm out of town for 2 days that I could have it removed in 24 hours.
How does Annie address that?
Well, obviously look at, look at page number 3 and the top paragraph, item number 2. Pretty much states that it's 24-hour notice.
Right, but how do they address if somebody's out of town?
At least so far, violation of the ordinance not intended by evidence negligence.
I'm sorry, can you use the mic, Jim? I'm sorry.
The ordinance doesn't address that question.
It doesn't, okay.
And in fact, the other thing, this ordinance is, the Antioch ordinance is quite different from the Wheeling ordinance in a couple respects. The Wheeling ordinance actually has a 12-hour period, I believe, that the snow has to be removed. And as Mayor Soto mentioned, it also makes it misdemeanor not to clear the snow from your sidewalk. The Antioch ordinance provides for 24 hours after the cessation of this 2 inches of snow or more. It does not make violation a misdemeanor. In fact, it doesn't provide specific penalties at all in this ordinance. And that was, I talked to the attorney in our office who was involved in the drafting of this ordinance, and that was intentional at the time. They decided that it would just essentially relate back to the overall ordinance of the village for the potential penalties that could be assessed against somebody who violated this. They were cautious in developing this ordinance.
But they have an ordinance that has no way of being enforced. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, it's not that it has no way, but if you call, most village ordinances have a general assessment, the ability, a general statement of what the penalties are for violation of ordinances in general, and it would then refer back to that, rather as opposed to giving specific. To be honest with you, I think
It's the listing in the code that states it's a range, that the fines can
Precisely.
range between a certain.
Precisely. But I'm, to be honest with you, if you decide to do this, my thought is that doing something similar to what Trustee Duberstein suggested is probably a really good idea. I mean, that's a similar kind of violation that you're citing, not mowing your lawn. It's very similar to not taking care of your sidewalk. And I think to make the fines or whatever penalty you put in place similar to that makes a lot of sense.
So we just included the ordinance to have Dave Schultz fill in the bottom of their driveway with more snow?
I'll have to do some legal research on that.
I'd like to just back up what Jerry's saying is, if you're gone for 2 days, or let's say a whole family goes out for a week, and we go and have a